What is the source of Africa's governance failure? In summary, the source of Africa's governance woes involve the psychological or mental state of every African leader. To put it into a Bantu perspective, this is a spiritual problem. It demonstrates itself in three ways: the big man mentality rather than systems mentality. Although it is a systems mentality, but it is dominated by the big man mentality. That's number one. Number two, religious doubt. In other words, there is no religious solidity in our leaders across the ages, except in very few occasions. And succession fear. In other words, they are not prepared to have a succession policy. Christian Rabbi Ellen Tumizulu of Committee Bureau Ethics, Karibu, welcome, Amohela. Now is our ancestors' time. Legacy from older kings of Africa to current leadership. Do you know that King Mzilikazi left a horror trail of blood, pain and fear as he moved from Zululand to the north? At the same time, he entertained and considered a Christian missionary as his best friend. We will present as our story our real history here so that we can review how the spiritual or rather psychological state emanating from our ancestral political leadership styles can be cast out or reformed so that we can have a very improved method or mode of governance in our personal lives first, as well as our tribal and family lives. Some wise notes. The blogger Menes Tau, on his blog given here, shares the following very insightful thoughts. He says, from the days of the Asante Hene and the Hausas of Dahomey till the fully independent African state kicked out European occupation, there has never, among many groups of African states civilized as they were, more than any European state till imperial power seized at Rome in the 5th century, a serious attempt to restore the struggle to achieving a more perfect state, free of colonial or imperial influence, or even to devise a regular constitutional method for choosing an autocratic head of state tied to the customs and traditions of African traditional governments. We have had good leaders, Menes. We have had rulers like Ramasase, Sundiata, the Mwene Mtapas. They gave us good leadership. We also had very evil leaders across the whole ages. And this is where we clearly say the spiritual tendency to be a dictator based on the big chief ideology has dominated our political timeline. Big man mentality. Let's look at this. We see here the most famous king in Southern Africa. He said, I need no bodyguard at all, for even the bravest men who approach me get weak at the knees, and their hearts turn to water, while their heads become giddy and incapable of thinking as the sweat of fear paralyzes them. Shaka Zulu, the king. Yes, he was a genius and a very strong-willed personality type. Shaka's wars were accompanied by great slaughter and caused many migrations. Their effects were felt even far north to the Zambezi River. Because they feared Shaka, leaders like Zwangendaba, Mzilikazi, and Soshangana moved northwards far into the Central African interior and in turn sowed as they went along destruction before developing their own kingdoms. Some estimates that during his reign, Shaka caused the death of more than 1 million people. This is Africa, and this has been happening across all the ages. Look at many countries. This is the big man mentality, to the point that Shaka banned circumcision because he said, I'm the only male. And this circumcision ties us to many ancient kingdoms, many ancient civilizations, except for the Xhosa and the Soto in the Zulu, amongst the Zulus and many other Nguni tribes. Circumcision was banned because it would give an individual their manhood, them being a male. King Mzilikazi ranks second to King Shaka. He too was a military genius. He was the son of Mashobana, who many consider today to be the greatest Southern African military leader after the Zulu King Shaka. He too had a big man mentality. You can read the stories of their dispute with Shaka and how they are separated and the wars they fought. Shaka decided to liquidate Mzilikazi. He sent a few representatives to join Mzilikazi when he gave him a mission to the north. And they started to point out to the king that he had promised all the loot. Although Mzilikazi gave the impression that he would give the cattle to Shaka, he grew more arrogant every day, until the representative realized that the Kumalo chief had no intention of handing over the prize. The dispute became bloody, and it gave the birth of the Mandebele or Amandebele nation amid blood, pain, cries, and destruction. Read this book. Get more from this website. Let's continue with the decimation of others. As they moved north and established temporary settlements, they were merciless. Near present day Rustenburg, they launched into action against the Bakwena, roasting some alive, clubbing most to death, and piling the infants onto mounds of brushwood and setting them ablaze. They were brutal, they were violent, they were merciless, they destroyed everything and anyone who was not of them. The Matebele turned on the poor, who were easily overwhelmed. Gahla, Chief Plan, fled to the hills of Mzilikazi, ruthlessly massacred the remaining Tswana groups in the area. Using Magaspele as his center, he expanded his kingdom, which by that time stretched right up into the Ngurugudela or Limpopo River. The Matebele, a name that derives from the Soto expression Tebele, indicating people who sheltered behind tall cowherd shields. The term Matebele was applied to at least two Nguni-speaking groups who settled in the region called Transvaal today, long before Mferan. Religious doubt. This is the second step. The first one is big man mentality and ruthlessness. So now we look at the religious doubt. It started with our kings, our rulers, and our leaders. If they had said no, Africa would never had these religions that later on destroyed our Ubuntu. In his autobiography, David Livingstone referred to King Mzilikazi as the second most impressive leader he encountered on the African continent. In 1830, Mzilikazi received a visit from Robert Moffat, a Scottish missionary who worked among the Tswana from 1821 to 1870 and translated the Bible into Setswana. Moffat's friendship with Mzilikazi is one of the most recounted stories in Southern Africa. He described the king as charming, dignified, good-looking, with a ready smile. Mzilikazi admired Moffat so much to the point that he gave Moffat his own father's name, Mashoban, and gave him permission to build Kuruman, a missionary place. He ordered that all traders should pass through Kuruman and be given permission by Moffat. What was Moffat's mission to Africa? It was colonization, simple, straightforward, deception, simple, straightforward, as well as removing our tradition and African tradition. This is exactly what pastors and preachers, Christian pastors and Christian preachers are doing today, continuing with Moffat and Livingstone's ideologies. Later on, 1835, Mzilikazi was again very excited and allowed explorers to come, and Mzilikazi gave permission for all of these explorers that were connected with Moffat to come. He didn't know that Robert Moffat was a British agent. Go to this website and read about that. The doting king feted Moffat, allowed him to lecture him about his cruelty and ungodly ways. When Moffat said he was looking for a place or timber to build his church at Kuruman, the king personally accompanied him in his wagon and was very excited and allowed everybody who was connected with this man to journey into Africa. The new Ndebele nation arrived in Bukalanka, now Zimbabwe, and easily conquered the disorganized Roses and the Kalangas, and all the region was then summoned and built into one kingdom known as Mtwakas today. When Mzilikazi disappeared for about 2 years and he heard that his ancestors has put somebody in power, he summoned all of them at a place called Manyanga or Ntabazikamambo and slaughtered all of them. Then he ordered the execution of all his sons. Fortunately, Lobengula was saved. But Lobengula proved to be ruthless and worse than Mzilikazi. Mzilikazi then reorganized his army and proceeded to subjugate all the other neighboring tribes, most of whom in time adopted the Ndebele language and culture, which was in turn influenced by the conquered groups. The succession issue has come out as number 3 issue here. Clearly, we've made it very clear. This is also one of the big problems in Africa's governance. Thus, clearly we see failure here with no clear succession plan, efficient institutions, responsible governance, crash the opposition policies, and a strong rule of law for the winners and distraction for the losers. This does not build anything. This is destructive. This is the mentality, the spirit that is in every African leader today, which we must cast out and remove. We're not using Jesus' name or anything else other than our own traditions. Missionaries developed friendships with African kings, chiefs, local clan leaders, and used this to further European causes. It is happening today. China is doing exactly the same tactics, minus the religious aspect, but using cash bribes. Often, African chiefs sought advice from missionaries, and they were cheated. Today, most African leaders were educated by the missionaries, and educated at missionary schools, educated in Europe. To expect them to rule differently than these African despots is to expect a huge miracle than before. Remove the big male mentality, accept Ubuntu, and craft a succession plan, and Africa will rise up. There we were, 1980, per capita. This blue is per capita African countries that had higher capita per capita than China. 1980. Today is the reverse. If China has done this, we can reverse this and correct everything. Hamiti Buru Ethics Marifa Development Organization helps people of Bantu heritage reclaim their spiritual identity. You must reclaim your spiritual identity today. You must do it in the best and correct way. Shoot us an email at join@marifado.com and visit us on our website. Subscribe to our channel and let us move forward and re-establish again the great kingdom that we were before we shot ourselves in the foot. Till we meet again, thank you, Tatenda Siabonga.